Hey, welcome back to Album April. It's April 14th, and today I listened to Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers by Wu-Tang Clan. There's the argument that could be made that this is the most influential hip-hop album of the 90s. This was a release at a time where mainstream hip-hop was dominated by acts from the West Coast, such as NWA or Tupac. But this was around the time the tide started to shift towards East Coast hip-hop. 1994 was the year where some hallmark East Coast hip-hop albums were released, such as Nas's Illmatic or Notorious B.I.G.'s Ready to Die, but before either of those was Enter the Wu-Tang. And plenty of other acts have noted influence from this album, especially when it comes to production. I am no hip-hop nerd, I don't listen to a lot of hip-hop, but when looking through the list of members of Wu-Tang, I do recognize a lot of these names like RZA, Raekwon, Ghostface Killah, Method Man. Oh, and by the way, when the Wu-Tang Clan was formed, they had 8 members. And then, before they even released their first album, they got another one, so there was 9. I'm used to rap groups having 3, maybe 4 members. This one has 9. But one thing I've learned over these album Aprils is that just because someone is the first at doing something doesn't necessarily mean that they were the best. I've listened to a lot of things that were monumental at the time of their release that really don't hold up very well, but I did my best to come into this with an open mind. I listened to it and I definitely liked it more than It Takes a Nation of Millions Old as backed by Public Enemy from last year, but it still can't even touch Illmatic. This is a type of rap that's very driven by personality and verses as opposed to having like a good catchy chorus or something like that. And some of the moments on this album are really good and other ones are not very good. It's kind of hit or miss. Like there was one point there was the analogy of was like, I'm the pitcher and the producer is the catcher and we're working together to make this song. Because if you didn't know, in baseball, the catcher actually works with the pitcher to give them signs, to give them advice as to where to pitch. And by the way, I didn't learn that from playing baseball or even from somebody who does play baseball. I learned that by watching an anime about baseball, but whatever. But then I'll hear the line, and I am directly quoting here, "All the meth got me open like fallopian tubes." When I listened to Illmatic, I got the impression that Nas spent hours writing these verses, trying to make sure all the words flowed just right, and he was trying to get across just the message he wanted to. I didn't exactly get that impression from this album, but there are still enough good moments to keep the momentum up. One thing I find very interesting about Wu-Tang's image and their whole brand is that a lot of it is based off of references to old kung fu movies, which especially at the time of its release, the early 90s, was a very niche and kind of nerdy thing. The name Wu-Tang comes from an old kung fu movie, Shaolin and Wu-Tang. The production was also kind of hit or miss. Most of the production on this album was done by RZA. Some of the songs sounded really good, and some of them sounded horrible. There was one song where there was just a guy going, who, he, or loud breathing noises throughout the entire thing. In my opinion, the highlight of the album is Can It All Be So Simple, which is a song about wanting to escape a life of crime in order to live the good life through music. The chorus is based off of a Gladys Knight sample. It works really well. It sounds good. The verses were pretty solid. I'd say one of the sillier songs on the album is Cream, or CREAM, which stands for Cash Rules Everything Around Me. For some reason, the people in Wu-Tang are very weird with acronyms that way. Wu-Tang came from a movie title, but they've also made it an acronym for things like Witty, Unpredictable Talent, and Natural Game, among other things. Overall, I thought this album was okay. I can definitely appreciate it for the things that it set up and put into motion, but I definitely believe that this style was perfected in Illmatic. So I guess overall I more respect this album than I do like it per se, but it wasn't bad. Alright, thank you for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.